Muito bem. Vamos então começar, está bem? Já estão a chegar. Muito bem. Deixa eu ver aqui. Hello, good afternoon all. I hope the lunch was good for everybody. I would like to present the keynote speaker, Patricia Govaya. She is Associate Professor at the Fine Arts Faculty, University of Lisbon, full member of ITI, Interactive Technologies Institute, LARCIS, Laboratory for Robotics and Engineering Systems. She was a co-curator for the Playmode exhibition that was 3 years in the Met Museum. Works in multimedia, arts and design since the 90s. Her curriculum is vast, and I only want to mention two more things, because in the web page of the Congress is, I will dare to say, only 10% of her curriculum. So, but I will skip that part, and I will only mention two more things. The first one, that she was also associate professor at Noroff University College in Norway, besides being invited professor at Nova University and Lusófona University, both in Lisbon. The second thing I must say is that to have Patricia with us is a privilege and an honor. An honor because of all the things that I said and that are in an academic path, but a privilege because Patricia is probably one of the most amazing, generous, empathic persons I have ever met in my entire life. So thank you, Patricia, for accepting our invitation and for presenting your paper, sharing your paper with us.
Thank you very much, Paulo. It's a pleasure to be here and for the generous words. And I will now share my work. And it's a pleasure to be here. And I will present you the last 5 years of my work as associate professor at the Fine Arts Faculty, and for 3 years and a half as Art Multimedia Department Director. And then the last 1 year and a half, the research work that we started for ITI, the research center that I belong these days. And here you can see some of our students' works, master and bachelor students from this year. It was their showcase presentation in last May. So thank you very much for having me. And afterwards, you, of course, can read the paper where the research I will present is a lot more developed. And it's a glimpse of many activities that we are now publishing. This talk will show concrete experience in using gaming and interactive media in higher education environments, and it culminates in the 2020 year when COVID-19 pandemic forced teachers and students to adopt different work methodologies. Of course, it's also one time where we were prepared to these changes, because we put in place some innovation practices and some alternative practices for the last 5 years. We had a reform of our three cycles degrees at our faculty, so there were these changes in course. Participatory design frameworks and a traditional of critical and interdisciplinary studies is very important, and I hope you will understand why at the end of my presentation. And we use humanities, what we now call the digital humanities, to convey students and to use strategies that can enhance, that are enhanced, by the cooperation from 3 different faculties from Lisbon University, namely the Fine Arts faculty, the Engineering faculty, and the Geography faculty. So our students collaborate together, and I'm only show today the national partnerships. We had also, during the first 3 years that I was at, I started at the Fine Arts faculty, doing exchange with Mainz University in Germany and another, which is Estienne Paris. But I'm not showing that today, it's too much. So I'm only focusing in our partnership with the Engineer faculty for the last 5 years and with the Geography faculty, EGOT. You can check those other initiatives in a talk I gave last April, and I'll give you the address if you like. This is my faculty, or where I belong these days, and for those that don't know, the faculty is in central Lisbon, in Chiado, and the research center that I belong these days, ITI. My group counts with a postdoctoral student, a psychologist and researcher from Brazil, Luciana Lima, 6 doctoral students, Anna Unterholsen from Germany, Isabella Arver from Paris, and Terry Matila from Finland, and also 3 Portuguese students, and Teresa Furtado, Dr. Teresa Furtado, she's already a PhD, she has already a PhD in sociology, but also Diana Carvalho and Tiago Mindrico. So they have different tracks, but we count also with someone with a background in fine arts and sociology, which is a plus, like Luciana Lima with a background in psychology. And we count each year around 8 masters. It depends, of course, from different countries and continents. I'll now tell you about 4 questions that I prepared when I was interacting with our National Foundation for a workshop it ended up last April, the presentation I was telling you about. And the questions we were preparing is to give an answer to these. These were my questions to present some initiatives that could enhance these activities. And my questions were, can we think about digital transition with open source instead of like Zoom? We are all settled in Zoom these days. We might look at other technologies like Discord. We were using Discord in these initiatives with the technical school because students can work. It's a gaming software and it's an open source software, but there are other possibilities. And how to use digital technologies to enhance human emancipation and participation was another focus of my proposals. And how to engage women from several countries in a shared project-based research environment. I think it connects a lot from this morning talk of Professor Walter Lawrence, this idea of prepare students for uncertainties and to emancipate students in a very community-based learning activist way. How to engage women from several countries, I said it, in a shared project-based research environment. How to use arts-based research to promote women inclusion and digital literacy. And that was the group that I was working with and preparing with Maria João Sequeira from our National Foundation, guiding the workshop that it was presented last April. So 1 year and a half ago, I started with Luciana Lima proposal, research project proposal. Now we have an in-progress website and logo made by our student Anna Unterholzner. And I was in this workshop for gender action, giving these answers for these 4 questions. Do it yourself mixed to learn, tools mixed with do it together. Students learn with other students, tools and strategies, and together master students are mentoring bachelor students, and PhD are mentoring master students, and it's very important. Also the teachers learn together in this shared environment how to become better and how we can help out our students. I think it's very helpful, this strategy, to use complex digital tools, because they know with whom they should talk. If it's a software tool, they will have someone to ask for advice from the engineering faculty. And also engineers, if they want or need someone in the art fields, they know how to contact. Group arts-based research projects can help women develop digital competencies, and I will show you our blogs, students' blogs for that purpose, for you to have a clue of this. Creating conditions for women participation in a shared environment, avoiding ghettos. Interdisciplinary workshops and formal and informal meetings are very important. Merging arts and engineer could be instrumental. Artists can collaborate with engineers. We know we have lots of European, if you go to Gender Action, all these, the documents that came up with the workshop are now out. You can see there is a huge divide between the engineer field and the arts or the humanities in Europe, and the numbers are very worrying for women. So I think we really need to work in future as a goal for the European area. The aim of these experiments was to augment the potential for innovation and research, taking advantage of gaming research methodology involving teachers and students in a common context. This presentation also shows augmented and virtual reality ideas, game art, and gender equity. And 2020 show how institutional collaboration can open learning spaces to a more focused approach on the interest of young people. That's very important, because we really need to catch young people interests, and there is a big problem of lack of participation in our democratic institutions and absence for voting, for instance, and we really need to speak with those younger generations and to promote a more sustainable and dynamic future. So an arts-based research approach can be instrumental to other areas besides higher education, as in itself merge a capacity to create and identify problems. And in that way, I merge what is the territory of the arts, sometimes create problems, and then the design territory. It's another integrative way, because we know that these days we really need a more integrative education. And that's what we did when we did our reform at the Fine Arts faculty. In a way, it was to look at the past to predict the future and to have a glimpse of possible futures, because we were like areas or fields were too separate and they were not communicating with each other. So it used to be in my time at the same faculty when I was a student. So things were really apart with this, what I call the specialization disease from the 20th century. Critical approach should question the time we are living and generate critical debates following an exploratory methodology with the capacity to design possible solutions for the identified problems. So we are using games to enable a transdisciplinary. She was invited during when she was doing her master to go and join Dr. Margarida Queiroz research group, and she created this web doc for about mobility and permanence in public space, where she was able to use her knowledge in communication design and to be also connected with a very professional research environment from IGOT. So this is very important for me, for my students. I think it's a plus, because they can learn other methodologies, and in that case, they were, of course, invited to work in different contexts. Tiago Mendrick also, he was working in for his village, Almeirim, and he was creating a urban game to speak about mobility. And these days he's working for this national platform, is a grant for EEA grants for this national platform with Doutora Margarida Queiroz. So now he's in charge of the communication project, and so he is very aware, and now he became also a doctoral student at our faculty. So he was happy to continue his studies. And another example, I was a supervisor of this engineer from the technical school with the professor Dr. Rui Prada, and we both collaborate to help the student with this work, which was creating augmented reality and augmented reality objects for a museum, Faraday Museum, it's a museum from the technical or the engineer faculty. We know for a long time, as Picasso once said, that when we work in the arts fields, and sometimes people are not familiar with that, we are not thinking about creating artworks, time will tell, but we are mainly work about in research. So we are researching, we are not comfortable with the world we have, we want to change it. We are very famous for creating weird connections and different fields, and our background can have, in my times at the fine arts faculty, I had teachers, a medical teacher for anatomy, I have sociology teacher, so I tend to be more polymath than a specialized person. But again, I learned a lot when I did my doctoral thesis in communication sciences, because I can use different methodologies to convey also my practice. And that's very important. I think we should alert our students to be able to interact with other fields. So here you can see they can use quantitative with Luciana Lima. We are working with qualitative methodologies from psychology and sociology from the humanities. So arts and design can interplay with other areas, and with this mindset of communication, but also of creating problems. Problem-based learning is a very important concept, and project-based learning, students learn tools when they have a project to solve, and they have to collaborate. When they collaborate in teamworks, they are more able to produce better ideas and to solve their problems. These are the blogs that you will have the addresses of all these initiatives from the last 5 years. It tends to be around 50 to 60 students from the technical or the engineering faculty, and around 15 to 20 each year, it depends of the year, involved in these projects. There are also, in this case, at the center, you have one Portuguese female from the fine arts faculty and one Portuguese female from Italy, an Erasmus student. They were very happy of collaborating with engineers, mostly male, from the engineer faculty. So now you can grasp immediately that in this picture, I think there are 2 boys from the fine arts faculty, and the rest, all girls, are from the fine arts faculty. The boys are from the engineering faculty. So we have this divide, which is speaking about intersectional problems. We really have a gender issue here, because it seems that girls cannot plan their careers in the technological environment, which is really strange. But we are working now to change this mindset or these things, and I will show you at the end how. So each year we have students creating their blogs. In these blogs, these are our public blogs that we publish at the end of each semester. They work out during one semester. We did it in 2019, and then in 2020 we turned it online, and the initiative went quite well. We could not it was an emergency state, as you remember. We could not let down our students, so the initiative was completely changed, and it went quite well. I went 3 years to Tagus Park, where is located the showcase, the gaming showcase, and it was good. We had I students coming, we had companies coming to see their projects, but of course we didn't have a glimpse of the old projects. And online it's different, it's not better, but I think last year students were happy. It's a way of not being isolated in these strange times, and this year it was online as well, and it went quite well. So the day, it's a day long, we see their works, and we comment their works live, and there are students interviewing other students, and we can play their games with different channels, and the initiative went I think, in a very constructive way. And for students, you have all their impressions, all their struggles during the semester in these blogs. So if you go and check these blogs, you can have a report, a complete report. They need to publish a post each 15 days. So during the semester, they are struggling. They come to classes and they tell, oh, it's very difficult sometimes. Everything is on the blog and as an archive for future. Identity construction, telling their story, it's very important, but it's very important also to feel that you belong to a community and that your story is also heard by the others. So a political or social engagement, telling a collective story, that's what I try in these initiatives to enhance, because students are not alone. They can come up, we can discuss their difficulties, and they are also together in these really demanding projects. The distinction between the individual and the group becomes less and less clear, so we work together. And now I'm quoting a neurologist, David Eagleman: the power and resilience of a culture comes not from any one level of the system, but from the interaction between them. And that's what, for myself, it's very important these days. Paulo mentioned the play mode. It was an exhibition with 30 artworks, 5 from Portugal and the rest international artists. And it was about the interaction. Now the interaction opened up for the last 30 years, a new field of research, a new field of practice, a completely different way of creating. And so that was important. So interaction for me, it's not only social interaction, but also the open doors, that the interactivity that this new media, but which is problematic to still call it new media, because we have like digital tools since almost 30 years. So this is ongoing, this ongoing process. And Anna Unterholzer was very key to these initiatives. She's a doctoral student. She managed to meet other doctoral students from our engineer faculty. She created a club opened in September 2020, where they now create games together. So from different faculties, she was a representative of our faculty, the fine arts faculty, to promote the value of games among students. And on your left image, you can see there were other master students joined these initiatives. It could be Global Game Jams, it could be this club that they opened in September 2020, where they can collaborate to create projects. And she was also creating imagery for these initiatives. So she was using her knowledge, and she has a background in philosophy, she has a background in economy, and now she's into the fine arts. She's really someone very prolific in terms of merging different subjects. So she was key in this process for last year. As someone who represent the others. And for these things, we had good news also with this game. Andrea Batista, I show her work at the beginning of my talk, and then Ariana Parrilha, she will have her Viva public defense of her master thesis next Monday. And they created a game, and they win a prize in an international game design challenge with a student from the technical faculty. So these two ladies, students, one finished, and Ariana is just on her last minute, will release this game in Steam, in a platform like Steam this month. So they are just with a complete, helped by the American Foundation to meet their goals. So they were completely emancipated. They participated in these initiatives, the partnership with the fine arts and the engineering faculty. And here you can see immediately the result. They are totally on their way to become workers in the industry, in the digital industry. Another example from Finland, Terry Martilla, she lives in Porto, and we worked together last year in a residence, online residence. It's a platform called Rome. And in this piece, we collaborate. It's an interactive, playful artwork about migration with a radical openness to the world. We were discussing the main concepts during the residency, and then she had her artwork presented in end of December till February. There is a huge text about this that we wrote together about technologies, but also this idea of a radical openness to the world and the migration issues. Teresa Furtado, she's a sociologist, also an artist, and she has this background on doing a second doctoral thesis at the Fine Arts faculty. And for her doctoral thesis, she created this virtual women art museum where she's working with women in shelters. And she's empowering them with digital tools for them to present their work in this platform. There is an issue of anonymity in here, so artists cannot state their names because of course, problematic issues concerning domestic violence and so on. But again, you can see there how they feel their phrases and how they use analogic and digital tools for their artworks. It's ongoing. It's not a finished project. It's an ongoing project for her thesis. She's on ending her second year of our doctoral program. With Luciana Lima, we have been, I would say that this talk is the third publication of what we have been doing. We had this publication last year, and in here the research was focusing the digital gaming courses in Portugal, and now the numbers of women involved and men. And this year we had this amazing feedback from this conference, and it's research done in terms of during there were interviews that Luciana Lima did last year during the COVID pandemic. So women were reflecting also about their situation, but mainly it is that the majority of women who are now working in the digital industry never thought about it as a possibility, totally different from men. And for this event, I will just resume the research that is on the paper. Research what we found, and it's part of the text. Research done in 2020 shows different results from previous one made with male workers in the Portuguese industry. While for the game producers interviewed by Pinto, the working day is made up of tasks at a pace established by themselves, even if still within a pre-established working schedule. The women interviewed conveyed the idea that the working day is made up of the working schedule and not the tasks they have to perform. In other words, the women are governed by a more established work schedule routine. And the digital game sector in Portugal can hardly be considered, of course, a competitive industry due to lack of scale, and still has, and the lack of financial support from the Portuguese government. There's a very low support. If you compare the country like Sweden with the same number of inhabitants, and it's really something, and the productivity of the work done in digital in the digital industry, it's clear. However, many informal workers work in it, either in the creation, production, or dissemination of playful artifacts for the national and international market. We must consider that from the same sector are part, besides games and consoles, for consoles, computers, and cellular games, playful applications of augmented and virtual reality, ludic systems applied to education, health, gamification of urban spaces, and other possibilities. And there are research made by Pinto, but also in the engineering faculty with the group of Professor Pedro Santos, which is also in our group for the partnership. They research for since 2016 gaming companies. So you can see these files in our video game science community. the associations and science of and arts of video games. Digital tools enable those who already worked with them to cope well in COVID-19 contexts. We have some research done in this area with interviews to women working in the gaming field in Portugal. We observed that labor flexibility and the use of information communication technologies contributed to no significant changes in the routine of these women. The main changes reported were being hired in COVID times, the substitution of travel time. The substitution of travel time for work-related breakup activities, the saving of time and money by not having to move anymore from home to work, the increase of workload, the drop in productivity, and the spatial reorganization of the domestic environment since all household members were also forced to stay at home. So coming to my conclusions, digital allows for greater inclusion in very concrete contexts, such as the case of recent mothers who can participate in conference, festivals, and other events without all the related logistics concerning, for instance, breastfeeding. I had one doctoral student who had an Isaiah paper and she could not do it by Skype at that time. It was 2007, if I still remember the date. Disabled people who have restricted mobility and who can access and follow remote classes without constraints. We had many problems of that during the last year, and it's always good to remind ourselves of the conquers, but also the problematic parts of the transition. Access to international events and research networks in peripheral countries such as Portugal is essential to solve gender asymmetries and others. The dialogue with the North is enhanced through informal connections, which allows to dismantle biased ideological, both from the North and the South, and political instrumentalizations in the educational contexts. And an arts-based research approach with no predetermined ideas or concepts, an open sandbox where participants, players can engage in a fictional world that creates empathy and affection for others, for strangers, for those we cannot understand. Participation and cooperation mediated by media can enhance civic engagement. The internet is now a mass media, and unlike the real world, it is borderless. Digital media platforms are instrumental to stimulate team projects with different geographical locations, enhancing dialogue outside geographical boundaries. The internet facilitates dialogues instead of speeches. Those who only emphasize hate speech forget the achievements of the last 30 years. Thank you very much. And I hope my sound was good and my net also. And I will end the sharing part.
Thank you, Patricia. That was fabulous talk, fabulous paper that you presented us. And I'm very glad that you are sharing your investigation with us. And we have, I think we can have now a few time for questions. Don't be shy. Let's see. I'm gonna try to see if there is any question in YouTube. No, okay. Okay, I have one question, because we know that there are different political and economic differences between us and us Portuguese and Sweden. That I think it reflects also the educational politics that different countries have concerning gaming. Even with those differences, can you consider the possibility of having a different form of having funds to do that kind of research in Portugal?
Yes.
It will be a possibility to develop political educational devices or instruments that can fund this kind of research.
Yes, and that's what the Nordic did in the 4 countries. If you see Finland, Denmark, Sweden, and Norway, they all have what we call a cash cow in economics, which is a game that it's very well known. Norway, an educational game called Dragon Box, Minecraft from Sweden, Angry Birds from Finland, and Limbo from Denmark. Because in 2021, they created the first game study, really, they created an academic field on their country. So in 20 years, you could see how it grew. And what we did, we also, I think Portugal started like now there's a big oferta. There are many courses like degrees and vocational courses, and Portugal, it's in terms of, and it was needed, of course, to create people to work in this industry, or industry in Portugal is still in commerce, but of course there is these investments that grow in a way, or if you don't invest so much, of course, people are sometimes these days. I worked with some companies a long time, 10 years ago. They were having money from Germany. It was a game I collaborate with Govaya, which is a Portuguese company. Before we had Biodroid, they had capital from Sweden. And because there is a thing that I found in Norway, workers, it's very expensive because a worker hour is a lot more expensive and you don't have a very good quality of life. So there are these possibilities of exchange. So I advise my students, don't think about Portugal as your market anymore. Like, we are in this global, for good or for bad, environment. So take what you can get. And that's what I was happy this year with Sea of Roses, because I started saying, when I will see Portugal in independent game festivals and festivals abroad, I will be happy. And I think these 2 girls took the lesson, so I was happy about that. So I think it's, of course, it's policies, is where you invest or where you don't invest, and it's connected with the decisions we make.
Okay. Well, I don't know if there is any question. No? It's a question about the gender action. Why do you think there is few female students in engineering, and then the reverse? What is happening here? Why this?
I think
because gaming could provide an area for real exchange.
But that's what we found, that it could be something to work out, because there were a problem. And the thing is, if you see the first, it's the second day of gender action, there were some researcher from Germany, and she was very clear that women, like in my age, I would be retired from the technological environment. I must be very resilient, because she just showed a graphic where it's not only in Portugal, these things. This is happening around in Spain. It's also problematic. We have been following all this discussion around Europe, and it's problematic in almost even the Nordic countries have problems with that. So like women, if they started on their 20s, they could stay till their 30s, but then they were pushed away. There are something in the whole environment which is really not friendly. So she was saying, in your 45 women in her 40s, she would left the technological environment. But I found it myself in several environments. When you speak about gaming, we were 3 or 4 women in Norway, and if you go to the same department, there's only men there. and there was someone from Australia, there was someone from Portugal, and so on. Maybe it's not only Portugal. It's not. It's problematic. It's part of the environment.
Okay, you have the responsibility to change that, Patricia.
Yes, I hope. That's why we are like pushing our national foundation to really like, now we cannot give up, because like the reviewers from this paper in Denmark, they were saying, we know that this is the research is consistent, but we know it's not only in Portugal, it's nothing new. Now gauge is like a clock. We are fed up of this, the situation. We really need to push it.
I think Anna has a question.
Yes, because I was listening this end of explanation to the question that Paulo asked, and I think that more and more we are again changing the ideal that was in the 60s, that the equal opportunities between women and men were a principle, were a value. So we have so many laws, so many regulations, and nowadays what we see is playing rules, playing the match, playing the games inside family, inside even professional areas. And they are the opposite. So we don't see equality. We see people that want to be the other gender. And that is problematic, because that gives us not a equality opportunity of being inside. And most of all, as you told, the age. I think that more and more 50 and 60 are not the 50 and the 60 from the past. Okay, I need to be retired, but is that a possibility that I pass to the newest generations the information that they don't have, because they have something that is very, very, very bad, that is illiteracy? What do you think about?
No, I think it's even more problematic, because we know that like companies who engage women as well as men are more open or more innovative.
Yeah.
So there are, like, for Spain, I was following La Caixa talks, and they were like speaking about even in other fields like the medical area. It's good to have women around to make things more engaging and more demanding, and the reality is not that. So it's like a competition that we are competing, and we are not. I prefer even more than equity. We are not together in our differences, which I think it's the most important, because I don't want to become, as you said, I don't want to become a man, and that's another thing. If I need to change myself into a man to be able to survive in a work environment, it's really
it's bad. It's very bad. Thank you. Thank you. Is that the problematic thing is that we must know what we are and respect each other in our diversity. That is the problematic thing. And people don't respect the ideal and the way of living of the others. So we have this kind of not a match, but a crash between genders, and between people, and between age. And that is the future. The future, I think, is going to be very problematic, because we are going to have some how can I say, strong opposites, not in the middle, but strong opposite ideals in political and social world. Thank you for your answer.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And I think, oops.
Thank you, Professor Anna.
Yeah.
Patricia, I don't know if you want to say something more, or
I was adding only that I think it's even worse. Like, things were better when I started working in multimedia during the 90s. Yeah. These things were not happening. So I think or were happening, of course. It's just stupid to say that they were not so evident, I would say. And they were worse. We are going back to some more polarized situations.
I must say that I was a bad student of Patricia a few years ago, and I remember that Patricia was the only woman doing research in this area in the Nova University. So as you can see, reality is not what it seems to be. So thank you once again, Patricia, and
Welcome. It was a pleasure.
it was a pleasure and a
I think Paul was frozen. So he went to Sweden or Norway or Iceland. Okay, I think that if you don't mind, and because I'm the oldest here from the school, I'm going to say, Levi, it's your time as moderator. And after, thank you, Patricia, in name of the Polytechnical Institute of Viseu and the School of Lamego, a Technology and Management School of Lamego. It was a pleasure to hear you, and your contribution is very, very, very important and interesting for us.
Thank you.
I say in the name of Paulo, because he's not anymore here, and we are online. It's the digital problematic things, but it's my pleasure to say thank you again. And we are going to continue with Levi, I suppose, because I'm opening here the space. Yes. And now is moderated, I suppose, with Levi. No, yeah. Yes,
Hello.
yes. Hello.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. Eu vou dizer olá a todos em português. I'm a Portuguese and a Portuguese speaker. And after the Brexit, we must reflect if we are communicate in English or any other language. I would like to talk in Spanish or any other language, but not in English. But it's the rules that haven't accorded by the supporters and the organization also. After this, I am proud to announce that Paulo Alexandre Castro is invited professor of Polytechnic of Viseu and full member of EFP in the University of Coimbra, and bring to us a communication entitled The Short Illusion of Metamorphosis in the Looking Glass, a phenomenological approach to otherness and altruism. I feel that I have the first lessons in English today. I try to read well. Paulo, I give you the word.
I think that Paulo is not online. I don't know what happened,
Yes.
but
I don't see.
Okay.
I don't see in the
Okay,
screen.
Yes, I'm going to ask to Damiana. Damiana, please tell me if Paulo has recorded or is online. It's online.
It's online. I
Okay.
don't
So,
eu não tenho inglês ou português, queres que eu te responda?
Não faz mal. Olha, Levi, if you don't mind, we are going to pass to Agostinho Serra because it's online. If you
Yes, it's
if
online.
you don't mind. Hello, Agostinho Serra.
Hello.
So, moderator, give.
Yes, Agostinho Serra. We come from the University of Naples, and the communication is entitled "The Pandemic Society." Welcome to this event, and I give you word to make your presentation.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I sent a video a couple of days ago, and I prefer to use the video because my internet connection doesn't work so good. So I think
sure,
it's
whatever you want. Can I put the video on? So, okay.
Desculpem que eu fiquei sem internet.
Paulo, nós passamos para o Agostinho Serra.
Okay.
And you already introduced them.
Okay.
Now we see a video from Agostinho Serra.
Okay, nice.
We try to see.
Hi everyone, my name is Agostino Cera. I come from the University of Naples Federico II and from the Academy of Fine Arts of Naples, Italy. Before starting my presentation, I would like to thank the organizers for the opportunity to be here. Now I will start my PowerPoint. Okay. Here we are. Okay. My paper sketches the idea of a pandemic society by emphasizing the link among the words network, technology, and pandemic as basic features of our society. More precisely, I will clarify in what sense the network society, according to Manuel Castell's definition, corresponds to a techno-society or a Gestalt society rather than a mere technological society. By Gestalt society, according to Heidegger's definition of technology as Gestalt and framing, I mean a social and epochal framework within which technology emerges as the subject of history. On this basis, I will show how its technological vocation transforms a globalized network society into a pandemic society that is an incubator of pandemic phenomena. Due to the short time, I will develop only my final argument, the third one, transforming the first two into assumptions or premises. So I apologize in advance for the apodictic form of my first statements. My presentation proceeds as follows. After a brief characterization of the network society in itself, assumption 1, and as Gestalt society, assumption 2, I will develop my main argument, the idea of a pandemic society. So I start with my first assumption. Around the beginning of the new millennium, the Spanish sociologist Manuel Castells established a hermeneutical hypothesis about our age, according to which we are living in a network society. By this definition, he tried to translate scientifically the matter of fact that we are moving within an increasingly homogeneous, interconnected, and interdependent framework, that we are inhabiting a globalized world. According to Castells, networks represent the social morphology of our societies. The network society is the social structure that results from the interaction between social organization, social change, and a technological paradigm constituted around digital information and communication technologies. A network is a set of interconnected nodes. The functioning of this structure depends on the flow among nodes and networks, an idea that confirms once more the liquid consistency, according to Zygmunt Bauman, of our reality. Given that what makes the network society possible is technology, or better, as Castells himself argues, a new technological paradigm, we can affirm that the network society is by definition a technological society. I now deal with my second assumption. In my view, such a definition needs a clarification. In Castell's approach, the term technology corresponds to a collective noun to apply to the concrete technologies. This means that he interprets technology in a philosophically weak sense as a means to an end or a human activity. That is to say, according to the instrumental and anthropological definition, Bestimmung, of technology already described and criticized by Heidegger. On the contrary, I think that technology should be interpreted in a philosophically strong sense as an epochal phenomenon representing the rederationem of all modernity, the final stage of what Max Weber called the disenchantment of the world, or what Heidegger calls Gestell and framing. And framing, so Heidegger, means that way of revealing which holds sway in the essence of modern technology and which is itself nothing technological. According to the Gestalt paradigm, any entity, included human being, is conceived as Bestand, namely standing reserve or raw material, while the relation between human being and world is interpreted as challenging, Herausforderung. That is, nature is conceived and made use of as a warehouse of resources which has to supply energy that can be extracted and stored as such. Within the network society, technology rises to the status of Weltanschauung or Grundrecit. It becomes, according to Günther Anders, the current subject of history. Insofar as the network society refers to a weak interpretation of technology, it can only emerge as a technological society, namely a social framework marked by the increasing presence of technologies, but where technology as such, that is, as epochal phenomenon, embodies only an accident. The recovery of a philosophically strong sense, a strong interpretation of technology, instead allows to grasp the link between the network society. Instead, the clarification of the real link between network society and technology allows an adequate philosophical phenomenon. In other words, only insofar as the network society proves to be de facto a Gestalt society, namely not a mere technological society, it can also prove to be a potential pandemic society. I now draw my main argument, the idea of pandemic society. Another flow has been added to the space of flows. The new flow is the coronavirus. This means that the network society is also a pandemic society. Such a claim leads to a question. Could the network society represent an ideal incubator for pandemic phenomena? The way the virus emerged from our relentless challenging of natural environments, the way the virus spread around the world quickly and comfortably in business class flights, and above all, what the post-pandemic period will entail. Each of these steps speaks the language of an epoch in which technology has become the subject of history. As a result, the network society emerges as a potential pandemic society precisely insofar as it is de facto a Gestalt society. The pandemic event gives birth to an updated version of the famous parable on chaos theory. The flap of a butterfly's wing in Brazil sets off a tornado in Texas. Now sounds a Chinese villager whose village had, in the blink of an eye, become a megalopolis, beating a bat wing can trigger a massacre of elderly people in northern Italian nursery homes. As a consequence, the Chinese farmer will no longer have the possibility, the freedom enjoyed for centuries by his ancestors, to eat bat wings. This is true regardless of one's opinion about this culinary custom, because the health of the entire world could depend on the persistence of that single custom, which is also a proof of cultural biodiversity. No adequate objection can be made to an argument of such indisputable common sense, of such cogent, smothering reasonability. There is no choice. There is only one right thing to do, and it is given a fatal character by this indisputability. The rationalization stands out as a universal discipline, the sole smallest common denominator possible within a network society. If challenging is the disease, then rationalization appears to be the only possible pharmacon. Technological solutions are the only response to the problem caused by technology. Against technology, more technology is needed. The combination of technology and rationalization takes, therefore, the shape of a destiny. Expressed with the lexicon of the network society, this means that the more we are connected and interdependent, the more certain discrepancies will become intolerable. The network society's development seems to proceed towards the suppression of radical differences, towards a universal homogenization. To avoid pandemic outcomes, our global, interdependent, and interconnected society must immunize itself against difference. This currently applies to hygienic and alimentary norms, but the question is, will this global regulation stop at the prophylaxis of bodies? Or will the network society gradually reach the point of being unable to tolerate differences in other fields as well, namely cultural, ideological, ethical, erotic? What is the gradient of otherness, of difference that the network society is capable of bearing? If contamination emerges as an inevitable consequence of networking, then to avoid zoonosis within a network society, it is necessary for all its nodes to be as similar as possible. The precondition for a safe interconnection is thus homogenization, that is, immunization against any radical diversity. Given this, the risk is that difference itself becoming the deadly virus against which the network society must necessarily protect itself. Difference would become nothing but an obstacle for the space of flows, since the negativity of alterity and foreignness, in other words, the resistance of the other, disturbs and delays the smooth communication of the same. Within the shell of a network society, there could be hiding, therefore, a sterilized society, axiologically sterilized, to be specific. Such a sterilization would represent the price to pay for full optimization of the system. The out-out, the either-or, placed on us by the network society is no real globalization, no worldwide interconnection without total immunization. The abandonment of any alternative of content or value exposes the network society to the danger of absolute neutralization, namely to that technolatry, the idolatrous faith in efficiency and rationalization that equates to a radical form of nihilism. In the first volume of The Obsolescence of Man, 1956, Günther Anders provides a peculiar definition of nihilism. He calls it annihilism. More than half a century after Nietzsche's diagnosis, he argues that the accomplished nihilism announced by supraliminal events such as Auschwitz and Hiroshima is not that in which everything becomes nothing, but that in which everything becomes one, in which all is one. In other words, the accomplished nihilism has to do with the inexorable eradication of any authentic alternative. As soon as the difference, the otherness, becomes illegitimate, intolerable, and finally impossible, then nihilism is accomplished. The true phase of nothing is therefore the reductio ad unum, the all becoming one, the one becoming totality. If all is equal to one, then one is equal to zero, that is, to nothing. Anders defined this accomplished nihilism, metaphysical monism. I think an even better definition, inspired by Roland Barthes, would be unism. In recent years, Byung-Chul Han has spoken of the Transparency Society as an inferno of the same, a cosmos of total positivity immunized against any form of negativity or otherness. Transparency is a systemic compulsion gripping all social processes and subjecting them to a deep-reaching change. Transparency stabilizes and speeds the system by eliminating the other and the alien. Within this social and epochal framework, the other as alien immediately turns into an enemy. As a conclusion, in its fullest expression, the network society as concrete Gestalt society and potential pandemic society risks to become a monistic society that is the anteroom of a unary world. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks. I ask if anyone want to ask any question about the previous presentation, a brilliant presentation by Agostino Serra. Ask to the audience.
Levi, I think that the questions are at the end of the presentations. I don't know, because I have some questions to Agostino Serra,
okay.
but I think that are at the end, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
well,
yes, yeah, I have it.
Okay, well done. Now we introduced Paulo Alexandre Castro. I already introduced him before. Paulo Alexandre Castro is a full member in the EFP of University of Coimbra, and is brilliant teacher of STGL in the Polytechnic of Viseu. And I give you the word to make your presentation.
Thank you, Ulvi. Okay, I will start my paper, my presentation, but before I want to thank my fellow colleagues and all the participants in the Congress for sharing this moment online, and I hope you are all enjoying it in any way you can. So the short illusion of metamorphosis in the looking glass, a phenomenological approach to otherness and altruism. I must say that, first of all, this title is full of irony, as you can see. But I hope that at the end of this paper, of this talk, you will understand these ironies that I try to put on title. So, the first chapter of this paper, that I called Introduction, What Alice Could Have Seen. The social world, that is the shared world that we live in, demands a serious reflection and time dedication. And in times of pandemic, individuals feel the weight of chains that tie them to the harsh reality of human nature, now structured according to the dictatorship of modern times, according to the dictatorship of algorithms and screens. Lipovetsky was right about it. Narcissus no longer looks for his reflection in still waters. In fact, Narcissus has become a web designer, a digital creator without knowing it, and his image does not yet exist. It is in transmutation, it is in continuous recreation, and all the images can be worked on its digital composition. All images are now subtle ontological dots that connect to return an ideal image. We would say a subversion of the Platonic worlds, which can be retouched to exhaustion. When the pandemic comes, it is still a spectral image. It is still a spectral image, something distant, which is not yet in the realm of reality. Just like people, ordinary people, living their own lives guided by spectral images returned by uncanny mirrors, which now takes mainly the digital forms, instrumented through fabulous apps, smartphones full of intelligence and fury, and whose content is ghostly as a virus like that of social networks can be. The pandemic is still a distant image. In a distant country, as if we were still living in a glass dome and could not travel around the world in 24 hours. And we live as if we were immortal, looking at ourselves in the mirror and seeing nothing but our navel, oblivious to the world where bacteria and viruses are born and developed. Not even the most precious lesson can wake us up from our materialistic and selfish behavior. When Lewis Carroll, Charles Dodson, writes the story of Alice through the looking glass, we usually forget the second part of the title, which is what Alice found there. People who read or see Alice through the looking glass don't seem to notice that Alice is not looking for her image in the mirror, but she is looking through the looking glass, meaning here that she is looking for what is beyond the mirror, to what can be reality. Maybe this could be the starting point. It could be the renewal of the deep experience of subjectivity, which is nothing less than the awareness and the existential experience of being in time and being with others. During the pandemic and the restrictions it placed, many television commentators around the world from different fields of study, political science, medicine, genetics, biology, etc., postulated the hypothesis that this global stop would allow greater awareness of man's place in the world. In fact, during the first confinement, these statements followed and pointed to this transformation towards a substantial metamorphosis in the way man would prioritize and reassess his ethical and moral values. People around the world start to place in their windows draws of rainbows with the message, everything will be fine. Media and social networks start to disseminate images that range from the return of wild animals to their natural habitats to images revealing the decrease in the level of pollution in the air and water. These first images seem to shake human consciousness and its attitudes towards the world and others, and the message of a better world seemed to gain ground. If this shake had an effect, that would mean an extraordinary change in human behavior. That would mean, above all, a change in the way in which the world, in which we would deal with the environment, with technology, and in human relations, which place the status of the social world at the highest level of the concerns of the population. This meant, in sociological or perhaps philosophical terms, the affirmation of human nature and the human condition embodied in the theoretical concepts of alterity and altruism. And there were numerous examples of altruism that seem to confirm such a hope. But no dream can last forever. And after the lifting of the first restrictions, a return to the same and ultimately normal attitudes was noticed. People start to run to shopping malls and ended up with a handful of nothing. The brief illusion has vanished. The chapter 2. Only butterflies and viruses can do metamorphosis and images. The man who shut himself up at home and who seemed to be meditating on this possible metamorphosis did nothing more than the character of Jean-Philippe Toussaint in the novel The Bathroom, which accentuated his peculiar form of passivity, the immobility of doing nothing. The character remains in his bathroom doing nothing, in total immobility. How could a man dream of an ethical transformation if he has more than ever closed in on himself? How can a man desire a metamorphosis if he is forced to see what he is allowed to see? It is the power of the image that has replaced the power of words, as Susan Sontag reminds us, that creates new realities. Because, as she says, the image acquires a degree of immediacy and authority greater than any verbal reporting. End of quote. The individual is diluted in the very fragmentation of the images that come to him. Everything takes place in the totality of representations. That is, from publicity to advertising, from business to leisure, from family life to politics. The different media, in their different aptitudes, are not mere informative or communicative instruments. They are instruments to capture the subject's attention, and therefore, being instruments of generalized asset with which he lives daily, because everything revolves around constituted by the technical images, as Willem Flusser would call it, creates a framework of alienation that favors the secret policies that govern a predatory global economic market. From the most intimate images of human life, whether images captured by surveillance cameras in a hypermarket, shopping mall, or images captured in reality shows in which everyone sees and is seen, to digital art images, everything is subject to the scrutiny and validity of an Orwellian Big Brother. Even the images that translate the end of man's intimate nature, which were sacred until recently, with the revelation of Auschwitz being the first big blow, such as the hanging of Saddam Hussein or the barbarity of the videos made by the Daesh, reveal the passivity of an inoperative subject, a passivity of the individual of hypermodernity. The possibility of reproducing events in real time, especially after the Gulf War, the delirious daily reproduction of image of ethnic, religious, political conflicts, such as those in Cabo Delgado, Mozambique, or in Gaza, and the instrumentalization of analysis, discourse, that is, interpretation devices, forge memories and establish paradigms of numbness. The times and spaces that allowed the formation of the collective imaginary were replaced in hypermodernity by the framing of imagery, violence, and the accentuation of the level of insensitivity to which the contemporary individual is systematically subjected. According to Olivier Mongin, our relationship with images of violence has metamorphosed. That is, we have entered a natural state of acceptance of violence. In other words, it is at the same time not only the violent images, but also the violence of the images in a disconcerting speed. It should be noted that the very experience of violence has metamorphosed. We witness violence whenever we wish, without raping ourselves physically or psychologically, which relieves us a lot, giving the widespread acceptance of aggression that validates and allows it as George Steiner mentioned it. Perhaps because all of this, the image of the new coronavirus does not scare us. It is not a violent image, just as the images of people suffering in an intensive care unit or buried by the hundreds produced any reaction in us. We accept the violence of the images. Probably the most scary image is the one of ourselves when looking at the looking glass, closet at home, in front of the mirror, confronting with our inner ghosts. To conclude, how to feel alteritas from the Latin, as the ability to put myself in the other's shoes. If during the pandemic, everything seemed to be under the same strange conditions. Altruism has existed in different ways, from isolated cases to professionals on the front line. But in fact, what has changed? Phenomenologies of altruism and communication seem to be just academic textbooks with no repercussions in everyday life, as most of literature produced in universities. Heidegger, Levinas, Merleau-Ponty, Ricoeur, among so many others, are ignored because this time of our lives, this time of crisis, doesn't allow us to be with the other, to be for the other. We continue to look into Alice's mirror and see nothing but the immediate reflection of what we believe we are. Thank you for your time. I will now end my presentation.
Thank you, Paulo. Thanks, Paulo. The Ricardo Almeida presentation, for technical reasons, will be presented in one of tomorrow panels. And now I ask to anyone in the audience if anyone want to ask any questions about these presentations, the Paulo Alexandre Castro presentation and the Agostinho Serra presentation.
Nico, Nidia.
Hello. I have one question for Paulo. And my question is Alice looking well to herself or to others?
Yeah, Paulo.
Thank you for your problematic question, Nidia. Well, we must say that Alice is using one of the faculties of our minds that we don't seem to use anymore. That is imagination. And the imagination it should be seen as one of the main faculties of human performance, if you want to put it this way. So Alice is looking directly for the others, not for herself. She's not looking for what happens in the mirror. She's not looking for her image in the mirror. She's looking for what happens beyond the mirror. That means she's looking for, in the case of the most read novels, Alice in Wonderland and Alice Through the Looking Glass, she's looking for the others. She's looking for the meaning of life for the others. And this could provide a different vision for what we also should do in this time of crisis. Alice should be the perfect character for us to see that we can go beyond that image We can go beyond that mirror. We should not remain to look at our own image. We should go beyond that. We should start looking at others and see what they have to offer and see what they can be, what they can bring to our lives, to ourselves, to ourselves. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks to the speakers. If there are no more questions, I now give the word to the next moderator on Anna. Anna, okay.
Yes, I have it.
I have one more.
Yeah, one more.
To Agostino Serra.
Yeah, I know that. You know that. It's not Paulo, because Paulo reminded me Charlie Chaplin in Modern Times, and also George Orwell in 1984, and also Animal Farm, that we supposed to do what we don't want to do in several years, and we reply it. But it's to Agostino Serra. Benvenuto. At the same time, you said something in your presentation that touched me very much. First, Gestalt principles are principles and laws of human perception. And you said the obsolescence of human being. You said elimination of the other and the alien. And at the same time, in your communication, you said it is so dangerous, the technolatry, and don't understand the nihilism. Mm-hmm. Connecting these three sentences, what can we do? Because we feel that we are not in the right path. We are not doing the right things. And we have lots of things like Gestalt theory that give to us so many information, but at the same time, we don't learn, we don't see, we don't look for. And we are supporting for technocrats in policy and technolatry in digital way. It can be not the end of the world, but a change that we can not reverse anymore.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you for the question. Very, very complex. I try to say something. So the premise of my work on philosophy of technology has to do with a Heideggerian interpretation of technology. So for me, technology as epochal phenomenon, I mean modern technology and so on, is an event that has metaphysical root. So it's not only to do with anthropology or politics. So for me, here now, technology is the most powerful surrogate of the ancient religious faith. I think it's the transformation within a secularized framework of the same dialectic or mechanism that worked for 2 millennia with the double ontological level, Christian and Platonic. So this is the premise of my discourse. Therefore, I have no precise solution against this movement that, in my opinion, is an epochal movement. My only concern, or my only idea of a kind of counter movement against this is to try to understand what for now what is important for us here and now about our being human. I mean, here and now, for the first time in history, technology gives us the opportunity to completely reshape or redesign our world and also ourselves. So for me, the most important thing here now is to ask ourselves if there is something about our self-interpretation as human being, if we consider non-negotiable, that we don't want to involve within the total mobilization. If we think that there is something like this, I call this anthropic perimeter. I think there is, we have to recognize that and preserve it, because here now, because technology has no, is by definition an axiologically neutral. Technology has no value, has no taboo. So
Com quem?
if we
Com a
let
Taylor
the
Uau, vocês gostam da
Sorry.
Taylor Swift?
Sorry,
You have
Sandra
some
Mendes.
problem.
Sandra Mendes.
You have a problem, Sandra? Please.
Desliga o microfone.
Okay. Thanks.
So I think if we leave technology to itself, technology is naturally involved everything in the total mobilization. So I'm quite sure about that. My discourse only this about obsolescence of man is a clear reference to Günther Anders' work that, in my opinion, is one of the best proposal of philosophy of technology, or philosophical anthropology of technology. And in Anders' opinion, obsolescence is is our, so to say, Promethean shame, our shame concerning the gap between our micro possibilities as human being and the great possibilities that technology give us. So the definition of Günther Anders that Günther Anders gives to obsolescence is that is man's negative attitude toward his being human. So
yeah.
the shame to be human. I think this is one of the greatest point in the technolatric approach, so to say.
I understand that, and I agree with you. It's that point, but you know that in marketing we see designers using the principles of Gestalt theory to organize content on websites. It's amazing how they search in philosophy principles, and they use they use them to provide contents to websites to sell things. How human group similar elements, how they recognize patterns, how they simplify images. So they are using that. And when you talk about it, I reminded and I said, okay, but is what designers use to fulfill the sales, to fulfill the marketing in a way that e-commerce done in the past. So we have here philosophy giving to marketing and to e-commerce and to digital areas and information that is so important, you know. Thank you for your answer.
Thanks. We have one question, Paulo.
Hello.
To Agostino
Thank
Serra.
you,
Okay.
It's just a way to provoke Agostino because of the Gestell, and the Gestell, I think it's more an ontological problem in Heidegger than a pure reflection about the techne. But that will give hours to discuss. So I want to ask you something more specifically, that is, the design is the Heideggerian way of calling man, of putting man in the world, right? With the others, being with the others. The question is that design is the one who shapes the world through time. Here is my paradoxical question. When we were shut up at home, we have the time. So what to do? What can the design do with time? Because we are always complaining that I don't have the time to do that. I don't have the time to, but now we are at home closed, okay? And what the design do with that time? Because and this is the paradoxical question. Now that I have time, I don't know what to do with that time.
Okay.
How can the design be? How can the design figure it? It can be put it in this way. How can the design be in the pandemic crisis characterized?
Thanks, Agostino.
Yes. Obviously, I don't have a real answer or solution. I can only say that for me, the way I use Heidegger's work on technology and more in general design existential work of Heidegger has to do with so ecological or ecological interpretation of human being. That is the difference between human being and animal, for instance. I make a difference that also Heidegger does in the fundamental concept of metaphysics between Welt and Umwelt, world and environment. So in my opinion, the demonstration that technology rises the status of the current subject of history is the fact that our vital space, or our oikos, is gradually becoming more and more near to an Umwelt, that is to a vital space typical of an animal. So it's quite difficult to say in few words, but I wrote something about that. So the question is not, or in my view, pandemic was an occasion or an opportunity to show more clearly some tendencies that are already in course in our age. I mean, this environmentalization of the world, so to say. In my papers, I also call the contemporary technology neo-environment or neo-environmentality. So I would add only one thing to Paolo. I would ask you your talk remember me some ideas from Guy Debord about in particular the idea that the climax of human alienation is the form of the spectator. So the condition where human being is totally, so to say, dehumanized is the condition when human being is able to see his own life as a spectacle. So I would ask you if you also consider Debord's work in your work.
Well,
thanks, Paulo.
Yes.
Anything
shortly answer. I think the climax, to use your word, is when you take a selfie with your smartphone and you retouch, and you search for an app to retouch your image. That is the spectral image of you. And that is why we look at the mirror and we don't see ourselves. And that is why we are so in confrontation with ourselves, with that time that we don't used to have.
Okay, thanks.
Okay? Thank you, Agostino.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks again to the speakers. If there are no more questions, we go on to the next moderator in the next panel. And at the end, I want to say something. I'm sorry for not having books behind me. My scene is so poor. And I appreciate this presentation. I'm glad to be here, and we and I want to organize the organization, Paulo, Ana, Nidia, and so on. Thanks for all, and abraço enorme em português. Até breve.
Até breve, abraço. Obrigado, Levi.
Okay, Levi, you don't say that we are going to stop 10 minutes?
It's your part now in the role, no?
Okay. I do it for Levi. We are going to stop 10 minutes. We return at 4:30 p.m. Punctually. That we have a new moderation and new researchers and new presentations. See you in 10 minutes, 12 minutes.
Thank you, Anna.
Welcome. Okay.
Okay, so we're back, and we'll continue the program with Ana Branca Soares Carvalho. I hope you are listening. Yes?
Yes, I am.
Great, Ana. I will do a small presentation of Ana Branca. She's a PhD in organizational behavior from the University of Lisbon, and she has a master in management by ISCTE from the same University of Lisbon and law degree by University Moderna. She is an adjunct professor at the Polytechnic Institute of Viseu, and she has several articles, several books published, and received 3 best awards in scientific journals. And she has an extensive curriculum, so I will have to skip that part. I'm really sorry to say it, Ana. Please do forgive me. If people want to see more about you, they can search in ORCID, in Scientia Vitae, and in our website, in the webpage of the Congress. So the word is yours, so good luck.
Thank you, Paulo. I'm going to say I'm sorry because I thought that I couldn't be here, and it was the opposite. I can be here, and my colleague Fernando, that is the second one, is not here because of extraordinary circumstances. So the first one, it's recorded, and I said, I'm so sorry, but after I talk about the second part of this case study. So I ask Damiana, please put the record, if you don't mind. And for my presentation.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ana Branca Carvalho from Portugal, from the Polytechnical Institute of Viseu, and also from the Technological and Management School of Lamego. It's a pleasure to be here among you, among all these researchers that are today and tomorrow in this big congress that talks about the new social world after COVID-19. So I'm so glad that we can discuss this kind of areas because Europe more and more wants that we, in this kind of organization, develop the digital communication area as one of the pillars of the information and education nowadays. So I'm going to share you my presentation that is very simple, but can promote different analysis after all. So let me see if I have it. Yes, I have it. So the new social world of communication, how this has an implication with digital transformation during the pandemic time. Davidson said that, or analyzed one of his proposals, that is how organizations have had to adjust to a new normal in nowadays problem, in nowadays system. So he also said that many are required to implement alternative work spaces. So we are going to talk that we have the traditional space, that is the classroom, and also the digital space, that is the new one in this kind of new form of communication in higher education. This new social world of communication will develop new proposal of digital solutions, and this may influence employee voice, resistance, and adoption. The main question of this study is how can the digital transformation support the new social worlds of communication during the pandemic time? This study was made in a higher educational school, that is Technological and Management School of Lamego, nearby the River Douro, the north of Portugal, with 700 students. So what can we say about that? The pandemic forced us to take an extraordinary digital leap in our everyday life, and most of all, in our everyday practices, including our students and their education. In a flash, their education was transformed. From traditional classroom practice, we have now a remote one and also a digitalized one. It is important thing how organizations adjust to the new normal and how they use informatic technologies in many aspects, as organizational one, behavioral, temporal, and societal. Organizations have had to adopt new information technology, ET, systems, yes, during the pandemic time. At the very least, many are required to implement alternative workspaces, as we talk about the classroom system, the classic one, and nowadays the remote one and digital one in networking platforms system, in order to comply with social distancing requirement. The new process theory that based this study presents a derivative sociological theory on the implementation, embedding, and integration of the new technologies and organizational innovations. So it is necessary to invest in the interoperability of the services. What does it mean? It means that we must work inside a networking system. The networking nowadays is so fundamental, as we can do everything inside our computer or in the classic way, inside a classroom. So this kind of networking gives to the services the opportunity to know in each minute and in each day the things happened, or how we develop all the system, because we are all together. We know, we have the information, we have the news inside a system that is an open one and give us as a base of documents, of data, of information that have all that we need to develop the educational system with quality and in an efficient way. So what we want a creative Europe. And to have a creative Europe, we must have a Europe fit for the digital age, that are concerned with culture, with internal market, and also with innovation and youth. Conclusion, because we don't have so many time. We are particularly interested in the digital transformation pushed for the COVID-19 pandemic concerning higher education students. More and more, organizational change will be associated with the adoption of innovative digital solutions, as I talk about the networking system, the platforms. This kind or this way or this solution in the kind of decisions that higher education system policy must have will build more trust, promote organizational adoption, and also makes a better implementation. Digital transformation is important to demonstrate how a proposed solution or decision will affect the digital cultural landscape of an organization. And more, in higher education organizations. So we must have a good communication, digital or classic one, traditional one, but we must develop networking system as a way to improve information and to have, in reality, creative Europe and a more efficient system in this time of pandemic crisis as COVID-19. Thank you for listening to me, and I'm going to interrupt. And I wish that in those 2 days everything is okay, and hope to see you in reality, presential next year. See you next year.
Hi, it's me again. So a little bit zen, as my friend said, but I'm so sorry. I saw it was a recorder. So moderator, please.
It was very nice to hear your talk, and I think you should continue with your presentation, because you wrote also a paper with Fernando Mamed Santos. So I think with you could continue and present us that paper. What do you think?
Okay, I'm going to do it. The next presentation, and I'm a little bit more speedy than I was in a recording system. But the next presentation is like a complement to the first one. When we made a study about the students in a higher education organization, we took as analysis to have data, the course, a degree course in informatic and telecommunications engineer. That was some of the group that have more problems with a hybrid system in higher education during COVID and during this period that we have the pandemic crisis in all over the world. So I'm going to present. I hope that is working. I hope so. I'm going to present what we made about this study. So it was a group of research that the name is Fernando, that is an engineer, also Hazem Hadla. It's an engineer, and me and Nidia, that we work in law system, and Nidia in social service, and we analyze the problematic things that students feel during this pandemic crisis. Sorry, let's put this. Yeah. So. We know that coronavirus pandemic affects 1 million of people all over the world, but more and more we found that digital age professionals and also students change the way of have information. Change the traditional way to have information to digital way to have information. More and more they use the computer, they use the mobile phone, they use the platforms, the touch screens outside in hotels or in public areas to have information about everything that they know they want to have, all the kind of information. This case study was in the degree of informatic telecommunications engineers that have a problematic thing. In several areas, in several issues, they couldn't have a good assessment, and they said to us that they have problems that they can't solve because they must be with a teacher inside the classroom. And that show us that it's not so easy to have online learning system. Online learning, it's not like long life learning. Online must have several methods, several paths that we don't have in those kind of courses that are presential, that need to have the teacher nearby in the practices and nearby during the class. And we ask the students what they felt, what are his way of thinking during this crisis, and several things that we include in this case study. First, how they solve problems. It was easy or not easy? Can he have a connection with the teacher or not? Have they the path to know how to search for information or not? And creativity. Can they do the works alone? They need help. They need a support. They need what we call a tutorial way for doing things. And what about analysis? They work together in groups. They discuss things or not. And teamwork, it results or not. What was the problematic thing to be online in one time during a day when they were sitting in the couch, and in the couch they feel that they were doing nothing. They have no friends. They were alone. They were outside of the world. They were again during a period that the family doesn't understand what they're doing, because it's not so easy to understand the work in university or in a higher degree system. So they can think independently or not. And what about initiative? And what about communication? And what about digital literacy? So we have some results in this table that they say to mathematics. To mathematics in 100%, 16% said, okay, no problem. We don't have problems with that. And 19% said, physics, it's impossible to discuss, to analyze this issue, this area, this scientific area, is impossible to be online, to do this online. Informatic, 20% can do it. Electronic, 22% said, yes, we can afford it. 23% in telecommunication said, okay, we can afford it. But the rest of the group said, no, we can't. We must work inside our space, our labs that have everything, and we need someone to give us some solutions and to discuss with us some problems. The scientific area of language, English or French or Spanish, they said, no, it didn't work at all. The same thing to enterprise science and economic science. And project, okay, they said, okay, I can make a project, not a real one, like a thesis, like a dissertation, like a master degree, but it's not the same. So lots of students said to us that they prefer hybrid system and not e-learning system, because it wasn't an e-learning, it was a mix of e-learning to distance information and distance learning. But it was what we can have during a short periods when this crisis appears. So the traditional school they say, they can now be replaced by chatbots. They said, okay, several issues, yes, but most of them, no. We need contact. We need people. We need to share ideas. And it's not by internet or by computer or by chatbots. Nevertheless, hybrid models are used in higher education because it's the only way to not stop the education system in nowadays. So when we talk about artificial intelligence, we say that people and machines work together more efficiently, but students are not so able and educated to have this kind of system nowadays. We must change. We must have another way to fulfill this path, to have better solutions in the future. So more and more students in our analysis said, what about satisfaction? Okay, they said 84% are satisfied, but they don't agree with this system. Perception, global perception, yes, they understand 75%. And how they see the meetings and the environment during this period. And they said, yes, we accept it's better than stop, but it's not a better way. So in several issues, we saw that the students, together with the teachers, together with all the collaborators inside the higher education organization, we have solution to the problems. Is the better way? No, it isn't. It's the only way. No, it isn't. They have solutions. They find solutions. We found solutions. But at the same time, when we analyze assessment, we see that the success were 87% and the non-success, so unsuccess, were 12%. It's few, but it's not real that they have all the issues, all the scientific areas well developed. So we must do more. We have here a comparison between 2018 and 2019 and 2019 and 2020. So in assessment, we have that it was higher in the before a pandemic crisis, before coronavirus, and it was a little bit less in the pandemic situation. The same of Sussex and in Sussex happened during this period. So the students from engineer and telecommunications area and informatics area, they prefer hybrid or traditional classroom classes with the labs, working inside the labs, contacting with connection with people, connection with professionals, discussing things, because they said, okay, we didn't make the option e-learning. We make the option contact with teachers inside the classroom, as we call the traditional way. Reality, and I put that as a conclusion to this presentation. In reality, digital communication applied to the sustainable development of education. And we are in emergency distance learning, even today, because of the crisis. But more and more, we must turn again this kind of education that is not e-learning, it's in reality traditional one. We must turn again to classes, to talk, to discuss, have the connection, to be with them, to have to feel what they need, to feel what they search for, to help them in research, to help them making a construction of their own lives as future professionals. So if I agree that the future is only e-learning, will be a problematic thing. I think that we must return to not classic one, but to a hybrid system or a more connected system till the students are more open to this kind of path in the future of the construction as future professionals. So the information that we have is this: our students agree with this kind of way, of path? No, they don't. They want more presence, more reality, more connection, more emotional one, more experience, more feeling that they have someone to talk with and to talk about everything. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Anna. It was very enlightening, and it was a very nice presentation, and I'm sure that there will be some questions for you. I have just received the notice that Tiago is with a problem, a health problem, so let's hope he will feel better tomorrow, and maybe we can give him space to do his presentation. So if anyone wants to deliver some questions to Professor Anna, feel free to do it. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I've been following your presentations with great interest. Anna, I thought the students' responses were actually great. And I think essentially they're telling us that digitally mediated communication is like making love through an interpreter.
Sorry. Yes, true.
It can never approximate the real kind of thing, and it can never be a substitute for authentic relationships. And I think that's an important message from the research that you've done. With regard to your comment on digital communication and sustainable development of education, I think the most recent statistics tell us that about 60% of the world's population have access to the internet and are using it. That means 40% left behind. So if 40% of the world's population is left behind with no access to the internet and digital technology, how do we then use the same digital technology for sustainable educational development? And I think the last question that I have, is there a possibility that the necessities born out of COVID-19, I mean, many people have been forced to go online, because we didn't have spaces for physical togetherness, might actually be used, particularly by, giant media tech companies who are generating huge amounts of profit for this, for the neoliberal, and by our universities, for the neoliberal appropriation and commodification of education. Because, you don't need to have then, 40 students in a classroom. You can take on 1,000 students because it's online, so we are going to be asked in the typical neoliberal new public management manner to do more with lesser resources. So comments on that.
Yeah, first of all, you talk about illiteracy at first, and you said, okay, not illiteracy, you said that internet, it's not used by 40% of people. But I talk also about illiteracy. 28% of women don't use internet and don't use e-learning systems. So it's our values are percentages that we must know and talk about it. But at the same time, when we talk about 40% of people that don't use internet and don't have access to internet, is a problematic thing. We have the same problem here. We had students that were at home, and the family guys doesn't allow to be in internet during the period of the day because they said that they are paying too much in internet systems, so or they have classes as normal one, or they stop. So when we talk in Europe about digital in the plan of recuperation and resilience, and they talk about digital communication 100%, they don't see that problem that you talk about. I think that is a big question nowadays. Are we able to have all in equal the same opportunities? No, we don't. And we felt that with our students, they want to be nearby the school. They want to be nearby the organization. They need to have their space, their time, their voice. That is something that the family, the parents that doesn't understand several times. At the same time, they don't want to be 100 inside a class online. They feel that they don't have voice. They just sit, they listen, and they do nothing. Even when they ask, if someone asks for something or put a question, the other one are completely down. Depressions are something very, how can I say, very
recurrent.
Yeah, we feel that students more and more are depressive. More and more they don't know what to do. They think that they are losing their time. They are losing their youth. And how can we answer to that? It's not only the problematic thing of the 40% that don't have internet. It's the 100% that think that they are losing their time. Because it was 1 year and a half. 1 year and a half, now 2 years. And they say, okay, next year we don't know if this is going to happen again. So we have courses, we have degrees with 3 years, and they lose 2 years, almost. What can we do with that? We must have a networking system and make benchmarking with other countries, with other researchers, with other professionals to improve a method to support this kind of things that is transversal to the world. What can we do for young generation that is so lost in the system? It's not lost in the translation, and it's not lost in love, but is lost in relationship, is lost in a formation and education system, is lost because they need to be helped. And that is a problematic. I agree with you. We must think in we talk of human rights, and the first step, we forgot everything. We forget this. So human rights is to understand that human beings need relationships. Human being need emotional systems. Human being doesn't like to make love with a computer. He needs to touch, feel, talk about, discuss, eye to eye, mouth, feel things. Yes, I agree with you. But I don't know how we can do that. How can we do something for this 40% of people doesn't have no opportunity to have internet? What kind of countries Portugal pays too much for internet still nowadays. Other countries doesn't pay at all in a way of education by distant education or e-learning education, but we pay too much, and it's not easy.
Anna, I think what you're saying ties in with what Paulo and Agostino were talking about earlier as well. You know, the sense that I got from their presentations was almost like one of nihilism, you know, and the sense of alienation and lack of authenticity in this digitally mediated world that we're living in. But the fear that I have is that the big tech companies, in the face of COVID, are poising themselves as the saviors of humanity. And in the process of poising themselves as the saviors of humanity, it's an increased dehumanization.
Yeah.
You know, and flexible accumulation of profit is the real reason, I think.
Yeah. And there is another thing that we don't talk about. It's time. We are losing time. We are losing time because everybody says to us, you have time to be inside Congress. You have time to be inside the class. You have time because you don't go out of your house.
Right.
That is losing time. We don't have time to do our things. We have lost so many possibilities to be with friends inside in a coffee, to be with friends in out of our house, in the street. So everybody thinks that we have time to do everything that they need, and that way of losing time, the way as we are connected with the time is going to change. I remind young people that said, oh, you know, now we are working in the internet, so I can be awake at 4 o'clock in the morning doing things, and I sleep during the morning. So after I work during the afternoon till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and when you sleep, oh, okay, I sleep when I have time. So time, how we manage time will be a problematic thing that is going to give us emotional problems.
Yes, it's the same problem that Walter Lawrence was speaking in the morning, the mental health.
Yeah, yes.
Problems.
Yes,
are arriving with this pandemic. So
yes.
I don't know if there is any other question. Thank you for your question, Vishanti. Yes, Agostino, please do.
I will try to, more than a question, is a kind of curiosity. I would like to ask to Ana Branca something about the new concept or the new experience of co-presence that we are living thanks to the pandemic. I mean, the particular type of co-presence that we, for example, are living here and now in the conference. Literally, we are in the same time. We share the same time. And in some ways, we also share the same place, a virtual place. So my question is, what is the difference between this type of co-presence and the normal co-presence? I mean, to be in the same classroom with other people. It's evident that there is a difference, but it's quite difficult to highlight or to define it. I think it has something to do with the relation between time and body, time and flesh. So, so I would like your opinion about that.
I understand what you are asking. You know that I feel something. I think that is Vishanti, can you close your micro because we hear something, please? Yeah. Great. Okay. You talk about being at the same time in the same space. Yes, that is something that is very important, and we have with this kind of digital way of communicate. But at the same time, when you talk that in conferences and congress we can be alive, is very different. How we connect. And the social, more and more, I feel I didn't say that in the past, but I say that nowadays. I need so much to being connected with people, talking in presential way, and exchange ideals, exchange ideas, exchange information. That I said, okay, I never liked the social part in a congress. Nowadays, I say, I feel so sorry not to have the social part of the congress because we are in digital way. I can't drink with a group. I can feel the food. I can't feel the smells. I can feel the way people dress with the roots because they are from Norway, or they are from Brazil, or they are from Cabo Verde, or they are from China. So we don't feel that. We look faces, we talk, we discuss, and point. We look like machines. We are not more human beings feeling each other in a normal way, that is being connected, being present, talking about different things. And we stop here, we go do other things, and we don't talk about, in reality, our lives as we do in Congress, normal, traditional Congress. Okay, I defend that in the future will be hybrid events. Why? Because it's not about resources or the cost, the value of the money. No, it's because sometimes we don't have the possibility to go out from United Kingdom and be in Portugal in 5 hours or 3 hours. It's not possible, but I can be online talking about this issue. In the future, I defend that will be hybrid system events, hybrid events. We are going to have one. Brazil is not open to visitors, so we are going to have a conference in 5 and 6 of July that half is in Portugal, half is in Brazil. So the Brazilian meet in Brazil, and the Portuguese are going to meet in Oporto City. So we develop a system that we are together, we are in connection, but we respect the problematic that is the pandemic crisis. But I'm so when we have the possibility to be again together, I'm the one that I'm going to all the congress that I can, to be present and to talk with people, to see people, to discuss several things. That is not the issue that brought me to that congress, and to be together like a normal way of having life. Life is not a style of life. Life is a way of living.
Okay, I just want to add something to what Agostino has asked, because this is the kind of non-place virtuality. It's a kind of non-place, okay? And it seems to me that like in the main lessons of phenomenology, we know that there are different degrees of existence. So yeah. Kant was the first one to talk about it. I have two possibilities. I have 10 coins in my hand, and I have the existence of the coins in my hand, or I can imagine to have 10 coins in my hands. and this is the other degree of existence. So virtuality is a different, I think, a different degree of existence that enter into our lives. So, but that will give hours to talk about it, and we are at the end of this session.
Let me say something.
Yes.
You know, Agostino, sometimes I feel that I'm a shadow from Plato. You know, and I was laughing because these books here are philosophy books, and I said, okay, sometimes I feel that my existence is like to be a prisoner of a digital, as you said, it's not autocracy, but is a digital, how you said, digital, I have the word, digital authority, so controlled. So I feel like the shadows of Plato. I'm a prisoner of digital consume as a consumer. That is very problematic. I can't live like this for many time. I'm a human being. I'm not a machine.
Yes, I only want to add something. So I think what we are saying, what we are discussing, in some ways is in indirect further proof that there is something in our constitution and in our existential experience that irremediably necessarily has to do with our somatic or flesh constitution. I mean,
yes.
This space, the digital space, is not a real space. We are here really, but this is not a real space because we have not the possibility to share our flesh together. This is the great, so to say, obstacle to a real co-presence or real common experience. Because all the other features are here. We can talk, we can exchange ideas, we have the same time, we have sometimes a real space together, a digital space. But what really lacks is a somatic or flesh common experience or sharing. So is a kind of indirect demonstration of our natural or body constitution, so to say. So.
It's a path, not a lifestyle. It's a path. Yes, I think that Sandra Mendes put something in the chat, Paulo. She said, isn't also about energy, our physical and emotional presence, non-verbal communication and time for conviviality. Yes, it's true. It's true. Digital communication is a path, is a way, not a lifestyle. If it's a lifestyle, will be a problematic in future in mental health and in health, I think, and in education also.
It's the, you know, Marshall McLuhan said that the medium was the message. Here is the digital. The digital is the medium, and we still can laugh. We still can cry if you want to, but don't do it. But we laugh. So there is a somatic part in all of this. We are not so distant from each other. We have reactions, we have emotions. So the digital is the medium, but we still feel alive, okay? And I hope we can be alive tomorrow to go to the second day of work and to have nice sessions like today. And I have to say sorry for some inconvenience that may occur or some fault, but these things happen even in digital terms, okay? So I do apologize for that, and I hope to see you all tomorrow. I don't know if Professor Ana Branco wants to say anything more.
Oh no! I'm so pleased to have everybody here, and I'm going to read the last sentence of Sandra Mendes that is inside her car. Her car is driving. She is driving, and she stops to write things, and I think that is marvelous. And she said, and our relation with not only time but space, as you were talking about. Yeah, more and more I like hugs. So I give a big hug, not digital one, in reality, a big hug to all the researchers, to all the communicators, to all people that were with us during this time here in Zoom and out in YouTube, listen to us. And I think that is talking about things that we are more creative and we are more concerned about the future, but at the same time about the present. We must think about the present to create a new future to our new generations. So thank you for being here in Portugal this time, from all over the world, in social worlds, and be invited to return in reality as presential one next year to the River Douro. That is one of the best parts of UNESCO Heritage, Mondial Heritage, so UNESCO World Heritage. So be nice, have a good time, nice time, and see you tomorrow. At what time, Paulo?
Thank you. We'll start tomorrow at 11 o'clock due to some small issue, but the Jorge Ferreira will speak later on at about 3 o'clock or half past.
Okay, so like we start at 11 o'clock. 11 o'clock. See you tomorrow, and I'm so pleased. It was an honor.
Bye.
Have a good time. Have a good time. Bye bye.